The best thing about retro video game collecting is not just the physical games that sit on your shelf, the console that sits next to your CRT, it's learning about the history of these consoles and the games that were made for it. And one of the things that fascinates me most is how the console I grew up with, the Sega Mega Drive, was seen in other countries. What was it like on the Genesis in the US, or in Brazil, or in Australia, or Japan? And in today's show, we're going to be learning about Sega's release of its 16-bit console in Russia. My name's Mike, and this is the Retro Gamer Boy Show. Welcome back to the show. Today we're going to be looking at something really fascinating. We're going to be looking at the Sega Mega Drive released in Russia and what it was like to own one of these consoles and what kind of games they got in Russia. Now, to do this video any kind of justice, I'm going to need someone that grew up with the Sega Mega Drive in the 90s and 2000s in Russia to help us understand what it was like to have Sega's 16-bit console in that country. And there's no one better to take us through this journey than the Russian Video Game Comrade channel, hosted by Viktor. Now, Viktor sent me through a ton of Russian bootleg games, and I've been playing these all week. Some of these are absolutely stunning. We'll go into them later in the show, but I've got a few questions for Viktor as we go through this to help us understand what exactly it was like to grow up with Sega's 16-bit console in Russia. So Viktor, to start off with, how popular was the Sega Mega Drive in Genesis in Russia, and why are there so many bootleg and pirated games?
Hello Mike, thank you for having me here today. Mega Drive was the most popular 16-bit console in Russia, and you are holding the reason for this in your hands now. Well, kind of, as the bootleg cartridges you have are modern ones. And yes, these are still made in Russia or in China for Russia till this day. And this is basically the answer for the second part of your question. Piracy made Mega Drive affordable in the 90s for Russians, and the nostalgia still makes people that are not into collecting games today to buy modern versions of the bootleg Sega consoles and cards. You see, Russia in the 90s was really a poor country. Of course, there were filthy rich mobsters here, but most of the citizens couldn't afford an authentic game console. This was the reason our most famous Famiclone Dandy ruled the 8-bit market and Mega Drive clones took over the button later. SNES was too expensive and didn't have a cheap bootleg ripoff, and the Mega Drive did. Same goes with the games. Even if someone purchased SNES for their kids, they bought just 1 or 2 cartridges for the system, and this was it. I have several friends who did have SNES in the 90s, and every one of them tell the same story. I had only 2 cards, and there wasn't anyone I knew to exchange cartridges with. On the other hand, there were a lot of bootleg Sega games in Russia, 10 times cheaper than original ones. We had a lot of stores who offered games exchange with surcharge, and this became crucial for Nintendo in the fight for the Russian market. At least we thought so. We didn't even know that the consoles and the cartridges we bought were bootleg. Sellers promoted this as original ones, and no one had any reasons to doubt it. If we speak about nowadays, most of the customers who buy modern bootleg consoles and games don't even bother if they are original or not. They just want to play the games they played in their childhood for a night or two, and then move the console to the far shelf. And where there is demand, there will always be supply. So the cards are still being made, and a lot of stores still have them for sale. However, there are a lot of video game collectors in Russia today who buy only authentic stuff, both retro and modern. But let's be fair, most of the ordinary people count them insane.
It's fascinating to think that gamers just weren't aware that the consoles they were playing on were bootleg or copies or pirate versions of the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis. And the Mega Drive must have seemed like such value for money compared to that Super Nintendo, which for us must have been like buying a Neo Geo. So Viktor, we've heard that Sega's Mega Drive and Genesis was really popular in Russia, but were these clone consoles, these pirate consoles, any good? What was the quality like, and did they stand up to the original machines?
Some PAL Asian clones supplied to Russia in the 90s were made so good you couldn't even see the difference between them and the original Mega Drive consoles until you unscrew them and take a look at the main board. The bootleg ones didn't have Sega logo on it. But the price for such consoles was almost the same as for original ones. As time passed, a lot of cheaper bootleg Sega consoles appeared on the market, and the quality varied from acceptable to poor. For us, kids, it was a lottery, as we didn't really have a chance to choose the type of the console we got. Our parents just went to a store and purchased the one the seller recommended, and we just had to be grateful for what we had. And you know, we were. It was a miracle to get a Sega for a Russian kid in the 90s, and we didn't really compare one with another. We just played our new and shiny Mega Drive. And all the comparisons started in the retro gaming renaissance time, when we started to look into our country's video games history. And this is just the thing I devoted my YouTube channel to: Russian video games history. The cards, as I can recall, were just fine. They were the same games but without the cases and manuals, and sometimes with Chinese names, but all the games inside were in English. The gamepads broke down recently, but once again, China supplied a lot of cheap replacement controllers, so you just had to have a grumpy look from your father. You broke it! Again? God, son, get your hands out of your butt! I don't work for your video games only. Then take the money and go to the store to buy a new one. The bootleg consoles that are sold today are mostly bad. Sound is awful, HDMI out doesn't hold the right aspect ratio, and there are a lot of lags and slowdowns during the gameplay. The cartridges, well, you see it yourself. They are poorly made, the shells are thick, but otherwise they still contain the same games, but now translated to Russian. If you ask me, I don't really like bootleg Russian translations for NES and Mega Drive, but it's a matter of taste.
It's awesome having these games in the collection. I love having these curios that sit on this shelf, and thank you again, Viktor, for sending these over. One thing you notice first of all when you open these modern Sega Mega Drive game, bootleg Sega Mega Drive games from Russia, is that the form factor is Japanese. And so if you've got a Genesis or Mega Drive, you have to take the PCB board out and stick that into the machine. Most of them ran on my PAL console, a couple of them needed the Genesis to run as well, and they vary in quality. Some of them are amazing new games for the consoles, others are stunning ports of existing games onto the Sega Mega Drive, some are ROM hacks, and a few are boot screen hacks. And those are very special, especially when we look at games like Counter-Strike, which has the boot screen for Counter-Strike, but is actually Lethal Enforcers. Or even this one, Assassin's Creed. Again, an awesome Assassin's Creed boot screen, but it's like Crusaders when you get into the game. Now, I've had a ton of fun experiencing these games, but Viktor, what's been your favourite game on the Sega Mega Drive released in Russia on these bootleg cartridges?
The fun thing is, most of the unofficial games for Mega Drive started to show up in the 2000s, and I didn't really see any unofficial games or remakes in the 90s. We played the same Mega Drive games you did back then. We've had Russian PC games, NES homebrew games, but I can't remember any Sega ones. The only thing that was different, besides European and American games bootlegs, sometimes we also had some Japanese exclusive ones. For instance, beat-em-ups were very popular in Russia, and sellers imported Golden Axe 3. Also, I can remember playing Twinkle Tail. Maybe there were more, but these are the only ones I can recall. Yes, they weren't translated, but we had a lot of experience playing Japanese Famicom exclusives, so no one cared. Games were quite simple, so we just played them and didn't read. If we speak modern ones, I'm really astonished with the Commander's downport. I think it's really great that someone could make this great PC game playable on a 16-bit Sega console, despite all the limitations of the hardware. Thank you once again, Mike, for having me here today. And thank you the viewers for watching this. I hope it was interesting.
Thank you again, Viktor, for sharing this with us. It's been amazing to learn what it was like to have a Sega Mega Drive back in the 90s and 2000s in Russia. And it just goes to show that Sega's 16-bit console had such a pop cultural effect across the globe. I'm sure if we could take into account Russia's unofficial sales of the Sega Mega Drive and its games, possibly, quite possibly, Sega could have won one of the greatest 16-bit console wars ever. Possibly. Make sure you head over to Viktor's channel, Russian Video Game Comrade, to learn all about video gaming in Russia. It's a stunning channel. Viktor is a hilarious guy. He has me in stitches throughout his videos. Definitely worth subscribing to his channel. We'll have links into the description, and throughout the video we'll probably be popping links up on the screen as well. Now, Viktor sent me 5 games over. Now, these are modern releases. I think from 2000 onwards these games came out, and these tend to be ROM hacks or boot screen hacks, but a few of them are original games and others are downports. Now, we're going to go through all of these quickly so you get a sense of the type of games that you'd be able to pick up in Russia via Sega Mega Drive and Genesis. First up, we got Assassin's Creed Black Flag. This is nothing like Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And in fact, if you take a look at the back of the box art here, it's actually like Crusader. So the more savvy games player or gamer would realize that this is a Mega Drive ROM hack or boot screen hack actually, where they've just changed the boot screen, but you've got Light Crusader in the back. Now, if you've never played Assassin's Creed and all you do is play on the Sega Mega Drive, you have a very different impression of what Assassin's Creed actually is. Next up, Commandos. This is stunning. This is a downport of the PC version of Commandos onto the Sega Mega Drive. And at first, I didn't believe it. I thought, this can't be Commandos. I went back and checked the original footage from Commandos on YouTube, and it is a downport of Commandos. Now, I've not finished it yet, so I haven't seen if every single level's in there, but essentially you've got everything you would do in Commandos. It's a 6-button game, but you can do prone, sneak, attacks, change between characters, look around the map. It's a stunning downport. Of course, they've lowered the texture resolution on the environment, sprites are different in there, and you can't zoom in and out. Also, the audio quality isn't the quality of the PC. But for all intensive purposes, this is Commandos on the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis. Lego Batman. And it won't surprise you to know that this is not actually Lego Batman. But what we do have here is a ROM hack. Now, I haven't had a chance to play this one yet. It's a Genesis version, so I need to get the old Genesis out and have this plugged in. But looking at the screenshots at the back, it looks like it's a ROM hack of maybe Mario Brothers 2 or Mario Bros 2, or even Zool on the Sega Mega Drive. And maybe it's Zool actually. So I'll see if I can grab some footage and we'll see what this is a ROM hack of. But they've replaced all the textures and the main character is Batman. So I guess Batman's correct, but maybe not the Lego Batman you're expecting. Mario 4, yes, Mario on the Sega Mega Drive. And this game, as far as I can tell, is a completely new game for the Sega Mega Drive. It's got Mario in there, or a kind of version of Mario. It's a little bit off. And it feels like it's Mario All-Stars. We've got Super Mario here, reskinned, a 16-bit version of Mario. And it plays okay. It's a little bit slippy and slidey in places, but not bad for an indie kind of homebrew game on the Sega Mega Drive. And lastly, we have Counter-Strike. And the screenshots on the back here, unlike all the other games, do not show what it looks like. They've kind of done a 16-bit-esque filter over some screenshots of Counter-Strike. So at first when I looked at this, I was like, ooh, this is exciting. Maybe they have managed to do something. Maybe they've kind of done a Doom kind of esque game in the Mega Drive. So I was really looking forward to this. Turns out it's just a boot screen hack. You get the Counter-Strike boot screen and then you're straight into Lethal Enforcers. But still kind of funky to have in the collection. I love making this kind of video. I learned so much more about the Sega Mega Drive, and to learn about what it was like to have a Mega Drive and a Genesis back in the 90s and the 2000s in Russia is just fascinating. I can't wait to do some more collaborations with Viktor in the future and just learn some more about some of these consoles that I have in my collection and how they were perceived in Russia back in the day. Now, if you've enjoyed this channel and you're new to it, why not consider subscribing? You can do this by clicking on a subscribe button somewhere below this video. There's also a little bell. If you hit that, then you'll get notified every time we put out a new video, and we have one for you every single Monday. But if you can't wait until Monday, don't worry. We've got a huge back catalogue of retro gaming videos for you to enjoy, 2 of which you can watch over here.